I feel like I need a kazoo or something like this. You've got the ukulele there with you, which is perfect. But man, 100 episodes, we made it, dude. I can't believe it, honestly, when we first started this whole thing. Didn't think we'd get there, and it's on Halloween. So we've got our Halloween edition for our 100th episode. Pretty cool stuff.
Happy Hallows Eve. You know what they say. Tonight, the Grim Reaper will come around and steal your souls, just like the way that Josh Allen stole the souls of Packers fans last night.
Oh, beautiful. Very
I,
nice.
uh,
That was
I,
very lyrical of you, Mr. Combs.
well, Luke Combs is a musician. I am generic Luke Combs, very heavily bearded Luke Combs. If you're actually watching on the YouTube, if you're not watching, just imagine me in flannel with a very tiny guitar, a very very annoyingly large beard, which I'm going to take off momentarily, and my plaid shirt and my Mountain Dew hunting hat.
Honestly, I think you pull off the beard pretty well, man. You should consider this because
Listen, you're
we're
still one number away. I'm just going to say Luke Combs songs throughout the show. You hit me like a hurricane.
you just yeah, just
How many
using
how many Luke Combs
all of the
references?
song titles.
All right, so reveal yourself now to the audience. If you can see Dan, you can probably guess who he is, but if you can't see Dan,
Yeah, I mean it is a little bit cryptic of a costume, but I hope that the one earring on my left ear helps give it away. I'm wearing a white T-shirt, and look, despite our show not being censored, we don't like to censor ourselves very much, and every now and then we'll slip in a swear word. I'm gonna try and keep it as clean as possible, because I'm going as Mr. Clean. I got my magic eraser here with me as well, so in case we got
hey,
any scuffles going on the laptop or the desk, can clean it
Mr.
up real
Clean,
quick.
Mr. Clean, ding, 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 ding. I love it. You should be Mr.
Believe it or not, I did not buy white pants for this occasion because
Clean.
I was not about to spend $40 on a pair of white pants for this one-time occasion. So
Phony.
we don't have that in there, but it's all good. Yeah, man. So we started this football lounge with Mark and Dan. It was an idea for many, many years that Mark and I had been talking about it. We both, grew up talking sports, particularly football, with each other. Wanted to do a podcast. Finally, got to a spot where we felt comfortable doing it and doing it consistently. And here we are. A 2020 season is when we first started. We're midway through 2022 and we are on episode number 100. I think there are two episodes that didn't count because they were kind of shortened, themed episodes. So we didn't count those. This is the official 100th full length episode of the Football Lounge with Mark and Dan. Does it feel like it's been 100? Because I really, it's kind of been like on autopilot. We've really kind of just cranked this out week after week. It creeped up on me for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, 100 is a big number, but in reality, we're just in the meat of the NFL season right now. There's a ton of great storylines, and I think it is funny. We're talking about how we're going to kind of look back and then look ahead, and how quickly things can change in just 2 years. Basically, we started this show. What the pandemic season started 2020,
Yep.
and look where we are now and how different we are, our own teams are, and the landscape of the NFL. And that's what's so great about the NFL is it changes more rapidly. There's quicker change. You can go from zero to hero really, really quickly, as you see with teams like the Giants and the Seahawks. It can turnaround can be quick, and it's wild just to totally see it, to take it on in. And it'll be crazy to think about where when we hit episode 200, what we'll be talking about then.
Yeah, so that's kind of helping set the stage for what this episode's going to be. We're going to go astray of our typical routine of going over each and every game and recapping that. That's not going to be what we're focusing on primarily today. We have a couple of notes to get to start things off, and then we'll go into a quick discussion about what the state of the NFL was when we first started this podcast. And I've just got a couple, quick notes that might surprise some people how quickly, as Mark pointed out here, things change in the NFL landscape. Some of these facts are kind of surprising. Think about where we were at just a couple years ago. And then we'll get into a few things that we think we will be talking about on episode 200. So looking ahead, as Mark suggested there, and then we'll wrap things up with some brief recaps of some of the biggest playmakers of the week, and for the Halloween edition, of course, what costume they were wearing to kind of signal their performance in this one. So, real quick before we get into our state of the NFL in 2020, let's go over a quick note that I think is worth mentioning. Bill Belichick becoming the sole possession head coach in second place for most wins all time at 325, passing your guy, Papa Bear, George Halas.
Yeah, sad day for me.
Belichick now only trails Don Shula with 347 wins, and George Halas, I guess, is really just kind of for a forgettable member of the NFL history at this point.
Yeah, right. I will say quickly, I think it's an important thing. It's really cool for younger generations of fans to see that, because what it does is it does put into context for people who are in their 20s or 30s who maybe don't know a ton of the history of the NFL. You know that Bill Belichick's one of the greatest of all time, and you know how much he has won. I mean, it took 6 Super Bowls, all of this success to just catch Papa Bear and now just finally pass him after his immaculate career. So again, what I would hope is that people would take it as like that George Halas guy, who the hell was he? He was really, really good. And maybe it'll open their eyes up a little bit to the icon that Papa Bear was, but also put Shula into perspective. I mean, think about how great Bill has been in our lifetimes, and he's still a ways off from Shula. So they are those 3 guys. I mean, they got it done for so long at such a high level, and Bill Belichick is right up there in that, certainly on the Mount Rushmore, the greatest coaches of all time.
No question, he's done it at a high level for a very long time. And to your point about Don Shula, it's great. It is crazy because a large majority of that with 14-game season.
Mm-hmm.
Harder to get.
George Halas, they
those
had
wins,
12-game seasons.
Exactly. So when you look back on the history, it really does put the impressive meter off the charts when you think about the context of some of these other coaches. And then Bill Belichick to pass Shula. I mean, maybe a couple of years ago, I would have thought, oh, he's maybe like 3 seasons away from getting there. But now, I mean,
I know
he would have to have 2 consecutive 10-win seasons after this year. And that doesn't seem terribly likely given the state of that team. He may need to last 3, possibly even 4 more seasons. And that doesn't seem super likely right now, too. So Don Shula may be able to edge him there. And I don't see anyone right now that's looking to threaten that very much. I don't know what Andy Reid's numbers at, but
unless things go so south in Tampa that Tom's looking for a new place to play the next 2 years.
Yeah, right. What if they both moved? Bill Belichick goes to Dallas, and Tom follows him to Dallas to win a Super Bowl.
That'd be sweet.
Cowboys. That'd be pretty
Get the
wild.
band back together.
All right, Mark. So I compiled this list. I know you haven't seen it. This was just kind of me thinking off the cuff and researching it to see where we were at right before our week 1 episode of the 2020 football season, right before we kicked things off here on the Football Lounge with Mark and Dan. So before
people
our
were dying.
First,
it was a pandemic.
It was a pandemonium.
Let's get the waterworks out. Let's go back to the really dark days.
Yeah. So before our first of 100 episodes, Tom Brady had not played a regular season down as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. And now he's not only a Super Bowl champion with them, and he added 92 touchdown passes to his resume since we started this podcast. And he also retired and unretired in the process. And obviously, it's only a couple seasons ago, so it is very near in the rearview mirror. But it is still even weird to think about what that time was like. I mean, that was Brady, the big story for 6 months, 7 months.
I mean, 2 years ago, we right before the podcast, we were talking about who's going to win the divorce. I mean, Belichick and Cam Newton versus Brady and this, bad organization with a lot of talent. And safe to say Brady won the divorce and then lost the divorce in his own way. But on the football field, he still won the divorce. Just in life, he's lost the divorce. And it's not great either. But Tom Brady's life has gone into extra super crazy mode in the time we've been doing this podcast over the last 100 episodes.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. Earlier in 2020, Carson Wentz was still a Philadelphia Eagle, and
Really?
now here we are.
They would have just drafted Jalen Hurts with a second rounder.
He was traded to the Colts going into the 2020 season, or in 2021, I'm sorry, and then now he is with the Commanders. So pretty crazy. He's been with 3 teams since we've done this podcast here, starting in our 3rd season. We might as well call ourselves the Wentz Show, because that's we're just following the guy as he goes around. And the Colts ended up getting a two third-round picks and a second-round swap with the Commanders for that one. That trade's looking pretty good right about now.
Absolutely.
Even though they're dealing with Sam Ehlinger and company, they could probably use those extra picks right there.
I mean, they need the picks because they got to find themselves their quarterback of the future, because they're paying Matt Ryan a buttload of money this year, next year to not play.
Not ideal. Before our first of 100 episodes, Anthony Lynn, Doug Marrone, Pat Shurmur, and Freddie Kitchens were head coaches in the NFL.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it goes to show you the Giants and the Browns. I mean, the Browns have had that first year was a disaster for Freddie Kitchens, but the Browns have kind of figured it out. We believe in Kevin Stefanski, and they've gone on a crazy ride. Pat Shurmur, obviously, the Giants are a completely different team now. Really found their stride. Doug Marrone, RIP in Jacksonville. A lot of coaching changes over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see that, especially with the Giants now on their 3rd head coach since we've started this. But it does seem to finally.
I don't think they're going to be changing head coaches anytime soon.
I don't think so either. Before our first episode, Andy Dalton was the Bengals quarterback. They went 2-14 in the 2019 season, which then paved the way for, of course, Mr. Joe Burrow to get drafted ahead of our first episode. But yeah, not too long ago, Andy Dalton was a Bengal, and since then, we're talking about the journeyman Andy Dalton.
Now he's crushing it in New Orleans. Earned the starting job. It looked like great win for them this week.
Yeah, honestly, I think he's playing better within the system right now. Like Jameis was maybe someone who was just not a trust the process type of guy, but trying to rely on his own physical skills, and that obviously helps with the deep ball. But Andy Dalton, very capable and just going through his reads and being a smarter player. We've seen that's helped unleash Alvin Kamara recently as well. So they're on the right track for sure. Adrian Peterson, Mark, was coming off of a 1,000 total yard season with Washington, and he added 700 the next season in 2020 there with the Detroit Lions. So, I mean, we talk about like the staying power. Adrian Peterson was still looking like a very capable back, over 1,000 yards rushing and receiving.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, that was the last of it. And AP is one of those guys that he's the last. He is the absolute last of a dead breed of player. I mean, Derrick Henry, I guess you could argue, may now be the last kind of stalwart, but I think Derrick Henry needs another year or two to get into that range of the 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 yards to really be, a guy you draft a running back and he's running back for 10 years. That is dead. The idea of that is dead. Adrian Peterson, when we started this podcast, was the last of the Mohicans in that way.
Yeah, it's very true. And honestly, I mean, we think about the recent trend of star running backs not really being representative on Super Bowl teams. I feel like that goes back even a lot further than in recent memory, really. It's just that the running back position was valued so much more and was harder to find guys that could last a while, whereas now teams are kind of just moving through them at a much quicker pace. But I totally agree with you in terms of the, franchise running back. Although Jerry Jones is committed to Ezekiel Elliott till he's 48.
I know.
Jerry would sign him to a 20-year extension if he could right now. That's what. That's how much he is infatuated with the guy. Even after Tony Pollard just absolutely destroyed your Chicago Bears. But we'll get there for sure. Staying in that kind of line of running back, Frank Gore was just getting ready to play on his 4th team in as many years. That, of course, being the New York Jets
The
in our
Jets.
first season here on the show, and that was his last and final
He
NFL
ended,
season.
he's what, 700 yards away from sweetness. I mean, he landed on the dot at 16,000 or whatever it was.
Yep, exactly,
Future Hall of
16.
Famer Frank Gore.
Absolute stud. The guy was a beacon of health too in his NFL career. Very impressive. And finally, Mark, a note here that is still, I just, even as I say it and looked it up, I still don't want to believe it, but Michael Thomas was coming off of a record-setting 2019 campaign in which he caught a record 149 passes for 1,725 yards, 9 touchdowns. Since we started the show, he has 56 catches, 609 yards,
Yeah, he's
3 touchdowns, all of which came this year, by the way, the 3 touchdowns.
He has literally, since we started the show, signed there was that record-breaking deal, highest for wide receiver ever, and has been absolute garbage since then.
It's insane. It's insane. And we're talking about a Saints team that, need as many playmakers as it could get. And it's actually surprising how they've been able to weather that storm. Without Michael Thomas, they still now have Jarvis Landry, although he's been banged up, and Chris Olave, the rookie, who's looked pretty good. So somehow they're managing. But, I heard someone talking, what's a worse contract? Is it the Michael Thomas deal or the Kenny Golladay deal for the Giants? And I think that's a fair question. The one thing I'll say is Thomas, when he's on the field, has produced, whereas Kenny isn't even producing on the field.
Galladay's been bad, and I hate to say he's an NIU guy. I love Kenny Golladay, and he was great with Detroit. I think injuries and once you sign that big payday and being in New York, it has not worked out for him. And he hasn't, I don't think, put in the work to be a great receiver, but when you get 40, 50 million guaranteed in the bank, it's life changes a little bit, I'm sure, out there in New York too, getting away from Detroit. But it's always Kenny Golladay is the best example of why I caution myself now, as everyone says, look at the Bears have $130 million of free agency. They have way more than everyone else. It's like, got to be really careful who you buy versus who you draft. And it's free agency can be such a fraud. There are free agent moves that we look around the league and it blows you away how someone landed that person for the price they did.
Yeah, the Rams for one, but
Kenny Golladay is a great example of be careful what weapons you buy.
Well, and to go off of that too, I mean, if the Bears, who have hopefully been putting together some solid draft classes, that money is going to dries up real quick once it comes down to like 4 years from then. All of a sudden, now you're having to pay, hopefully 10 guys that you drafted and were able to develop. So yeah, you also gotta be frugal with that if you want to be able to afford some of the guys that you developed.
Absolutely.
Put together. But yeah, crazy stuff there. And the Giants, getting rid of Kadarius Toney, which we didn't talk about, the draft or the trade to the Kansas City Chiefs, by the way, if you want to touch on that real quick before we get into our talking points on episode 200. Kadarius Toney sent to the Chiefs for a 3rd and I believe a conditional 6th round draft pick. So the Chiefs kind of going not all in, but paying a decent price for a recent 1st round pick who hasn't been able to get on the field for a team that really needed wide receiver help. So there's some questions there.
I'm totally comfortable with the Chiefs taking a swing. This is what the Chiefs have to do. I mean, you got to remember, if you're Kansas City at this point in time, you don't have top end draft picks. You know what I mean? You're never going to be drafting in the top 10. So if you can go poach disgruntled talent and get him at a price that you feel like you can afford, put him in your system, I think it makes total sense. I think, it's not going to shock any of us if he has a huge career now in Kansas City and explodes. And for the Giants, I really do like it because they have a culture now. They're shifting, right? They're making their changes. They're building their culture. And if you feel like you just got to get a person out of the room, even if it technically on paper makes your team worse, sometimes you have to do that. I mean, like, you have to make moves towards 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. That's a 1 step backward for the Giants, but in the long run, they believe it'll help them move 2 steps forward, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. Kind of just bringing in their guys.
Yeah,
Brian Daboll, and obviously it clearly hadn't worked out to this point. The guy, really struggled to get on the field. I think the Chiefs, Look, I mean, they draft pretty well. I think at the end of the day, they're thinking we're getting a first round talent for a third round pick essentially, and we'll take that dart and
Yeah.
throw it at the dartboard and hope it sticks.
Y-
So yeah,
I think it's a little bit, I related to, and I'm sure we'll, well, maybe we'll talk about it. Are we going to talk about Tom Brady and the Bucks here coming on up? I just
yeah, we
relate,
can absolutely
I
touch on
relate
Tom
the
Brady.
Tooney, I relate the Tooney stuff to that. Like, you have to remember, every one of us works in an office, right? You work on a team, you have people on your team. If someone's is just annoying or they got stuff going on in their personal life, like it can throw off the juju and the vibes in the whole locker room. And if a guy like Kadarius Toney is feeling that way, and you just feel like we just need to get him out of here, like he's unhappy, he's angry, he's won't shut up, or he's going through personal things. I think it's one of the reasons why I relate to Tom Brady. The Bucks are struggling. If the leader, and you're like, if you work in an office with 20 people and your manager is going through something horrific in their personal life, and you all know they're going through it, you're going to be on edge at work. You're going to close your door as opposed to keeping it open. You know what I mean? You're going to keep your head down when that person walks by as opposed to be like, hey, how are you? Like that changes the temperature, and that can really affect everything. And I think the Giants making the Tooney move, it's part of that. Like, hey, we're building something right now, and this guy's not along for the ride with us. Let's get what we can and move on.
We saw it with Robbie Anderson earlier this year, and maybe we're seeing it with Elijah Moore with the Jets as well. So time will tell on that front. But Mark, you want to spearhead us here into this topics of episode 200 here on the Football Lounge with Mark and Dan. A little bit tough to foreshadow, but I'm looking forward to because I think there are some things that we'll agree on here.
Yeah. So we try to do a show every week. So 52 weeks in a year. If we are here at episode 100 now, we started right before the start of the previous season. So if you can kind of project that out, by episode 200, we will be at the very end, nearing the Super Bowl-ish of the 2024-2025 season, right? Just crazy to think about. So we were talking about topics for this 100th episode. I thought it'd be really fun if you and I could make 3 kind of bold predictions for what the headlines or what we'd be talking about in the 2020 in that year, in the episode 200. So at the end of the 2024-2025 season, we can kind of trade off if you want, or I can just do my 3 and then you do your 3. Whatever you want to do. I'll just lift off my 3.
Okay.
I think
that works.
I think around at the end, around episode 200, so around the end of the 2024-2025 season, we will be talking about the Packers in tank mode. They are full on rebuild. They've begun the rebuilding process and they're tanking. I absolutely believe the Packers, it won't happen next year because I think Aaron will come back. He's on the hook for another $50 million. You don't pass that up, guaranteed money. But then that 2024 season, if Aaron's around, he could opt in, he could opt out by that point in time. Either way, it'll be a disastrous season. I think Aaron will probably be done. And my prediction would be around episode 200, we'll be talking about the Green Bay Packers along with some of the other dregs of the league trying and fighting for top picks, rebuilding, doing what the Panthers are doing now, looking for that number 1 overall pick. I think the Packers are in store for a rebuild around episode 200. It's also me just knocking on wood, praying for that to happen. That would really be ideal. I have left the Bears out of this because, of course, I have a lot of things I want to be thinking around episode 200. Bears number 1 overall seed in the NFC, Justin Fields, MVP, all those things. But I'll spare you all that. I think at the end of the 2024 season, around episode 200, another thing we will be talking about, Josh Allen. Is he going for his 2nd MVP in his career and still Super Bowl-less? Is this the year for Josh Allen to win a Super Bowl? He's got the MVP. He's looking to have another MVP season. But as the Bills, put this, is this the right pieces around him? Is the run game finally going? And can Josh Allen finally get himself an elusive ring? And my other topic, I think the number 1 thing that I feel really confident we'll be talking about on episode 200 at that point in time is we will be talking about Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, how much longer can this dynasty go on? Andy Reid getting up there in age. They've won another Super Bowl by this point in time, either this year or next year. So he's got 2 rings. Is Andy getting long in the tooth? What is the longevity? I think we'll be talking about Patrick Mahomes with another Super Bowl ring, and we'll be talking about a large debate will be, is this the final ride for Andy and Patrick? Is Andy going to retire after the 2024-2025 season, especially if they can go out defending their Super Bowl title, back-to-back champs?
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll just start because I do agree. I actually wrote down a similar one to your last one there. But the Josh Allen thing, yeah, I think he's still going to be without a Super Bowl, and I think he will probably be on the heels of his second league MVP or something like that. Probably 2 in a row at that point, and that'll be a dominant discussion. So my first one was Patrick Mahomes will still be talking about as the best quarterback in the NFL, and he'll have another ring at that point. Yeah. So my thought is the next 2 seasons he's going to win a ring, potentially, if not in that 2024 season. So if we're at episode 200, it might be right in line with the Super Bowl just before it. But I think within the next 200 episodes, Patrick Mahomes will have won another ring, and we will still be talking about him being the best in the NFL. Another one, we'll be talking about, hey, this head coach of the LA Chargers, Sean Payton, is doing a heck of a job here with Justin Herbert and company.
I love that.
I think I'm going to go bold on that one and say that the Saints don't give up his rights to an NFC team, and they'll go AFC. I think Brandon Staley has a lot of questions right now. Maybe they give him one more year, and then Sean Payton comes to town to help resurrect the young Justin Herbert. I think it'd be an interesting fit, and I think Sean Payton, in somewhat retirement mode, would be cool with going to LA, on the California side of things. So some thoughts there. And then another joke one before I get to my final third one. I just wrote Antonio Brown incident. So whatever it is, we'll be talking about it on episode 200.
We won't have to talk about it at that point. We'll just
that's true.
Ignore it. But yeah, I agree. That's good.
No, my final one is that, and this is another bold one, that the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers will be either Jimmy Garoppolo or Dak Prescott. I think I could see the Dallas Cowboys, after another, one and done in the playoffs or missing the division, 1 or 2 more seasons of that is going to be, that's it. We're moving off. We got to move on. And the 49ers not going to pick high enough to be able to get their top quarterback. They already spent too much on Trey Lance. Not sure it'll work out. So they're stuck with, hey, do we want to go with Jimmy G or a younger Jimmy G in Dak Prescott, and a guy who could probably run that system pretty well there in San Fran. So that was my my final bold statement, is we'll be talking about one of those guys still as the San Francisco quarterback, or the new quarterback.
I think we're both on to something there. I think the Bills are so great. They're fun to watch. Josh Allen, he'll win an MVP here coming up soon. I think it could be this year. I mean, he's so electric. Right. But I do think the Chiefs overall, I still feel the most confident. If you told me over the next 2 years, pick a team to win a Super Bowl, I'm going to say the Chiefs. I mean, they're right now the best version of I've seen them do it, and they're still sustaining it. We just saw the Rams win a Super Bowl, but it's not sustaining it. We saw the Bucs win a Super Bowl 2 years ago, but it's not sustainable. No one in the AFC has kind of proven it to be consistently better than the Chiefs, even though the Bengals did get the best of the Chiefs last year. I think they are the safest bet, and I do think that I would have added. I meant to add to my point, 2024, 2025. It'll also be the final year for Travis Kelce with the Chiefs. Kelce's a guy you got to forget. He's older than you think. He is not a young gun like Patrick Mahomes' age. This is the final year or two of Kelce peak. I think peak Kelce. Now they may just extend him, and he may just stay as long as did with Gronk, and fine tune his role in the offense. But Kelce's one of those guys, I think, that his drop off will be sudden, because right now what makes him just so electric is you can't cover him with linebackers and safeties, and he's too big for corners. But as soon as as soon as linebackers and safeties, young ones can run with him, I mean, he becomes still a very good tight end. He's a Hall of Famer, but he loses what makes him special. Gronk, even at the end, was still always special just because in the goal line situations, his physical freakness was still always there. I mean, Kelce could be that, but I don't know if he's going to transition into that.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously with every position, but primarily along the lines. I mean, when the wheels fall off, they really, really fall off. And tight end's a very physical, tough position to sustain. He's obviously been the poster child for that, so it's hard to doubt him. But yeah, I mean, in a couple years, he'll be like 34. That's going to be, or 35 maybe even at that point. That's going to be tough to still be as dominant as he is for sure. All right, Mark. Well, that puts kind of a wrap on the what we'll talk about in episode 200. I will ask you, actually, I'd like to throw this your way. Will Matt Eberflus and Justin Fields still be tied with the Chicago Bears?
I do believe at this point in time, if you're gonna make me choose, Matt Eberflus and Justin Fields will still be the coach and quarterback of the Chicago Bears at the end of the 24-25 season. And I think I'm fair in saying that because Fields would be on his either 5th-year extension at that point, because this is year 2, so year 3, year 4. So yeah, he'd be vying for that 4th year, vying for that 5th-year extension.
That 5th-year option.
I think Eberflus won't get fired at the end of next. He'll be the coach going into next year. The only way he wouldn't be the coach going into 2024 is if somehow next year is a total disaster. And I don't see it being a total disaster. So unless he gets fired mid-year 3 and things just fall apart for the Bears, I would predict the Bears don't usually do that. So I'd predict, yes, the Bears, Justin Fields, and Matt Eberflus will be in place for a Bears team that will be the number 1 overall seed and hosting the NFC Championship game at Soldier Field in our 200th episode.
Good stuff. All right. Very good. And still at Soldier Field, unfortunately. But hey, we got to give them time.
You want me to add to that? We can talk about this. Mac Jones, Trey Lance, and Zach Wilson will not be starting in the NFL.
Will Baker Mayfield be in the NFL?
No.
That's
easy. That's easy.
Will Eddie Pinheiro be in the NFL?
No.
Good Lord. What a rough outing.
DJ Moore screwed him.
He did.
Screwed Eddie Pinheiro.
Yeah, DJ Moore taking the helmet off after just what a rocket by PJ Walker, by the way.
That should not be a flag.
It's really silly.
You should take a flag. It should be a flag if you take your helmet off in anger or like in the middle of a play or anything like that. But on a Hail Mary game-winning touchdown, that's like one of those, like, refs judge Hail Marys differently. You don't call pass interference on a Hail Mary. You don't. Like, you never do, unless it's like legit blatant. We can't ignore it. So you got to let that one slide. You know what I mean? You got to let that one slide. And
end
the
of
NFL,
the game, heated moment, division rivalry. You get a 62-yard bomb.
The
touchdown.
NFL should step in and say to the Falcons, we realize we're officiating that differently. We understand you have a right to maybe be concerned. We will fine him. But we do not want the outcome of this game the Panthers won that game. They won that game.
If you didn't see it, DJ Moore caught the touchdown pass. It was like a 65-yarder or something like that in the end zone in the final seconds to tie it at 34. They were an extra point away, and DJ Moore took his helmet off in celebration. They back up the extra point. I think it was like a 45-yarder at that point or something like that. And he misses the kick. We go to overtime, misses another kick. So that's where you can really fault Pinheiro for missing another kick in overtime. And then Younghoe Koo for the Falcons ends up giving them the winner. Crazy sequence. I totally agree with you, though. That taking the helmet off thing, it's in line with the celebration stuff. Like, it's a guy taking off his own helmet. That shouldn't be like, if you take off your shoe, that shouldn't be a big deal, you know. Yeah. As the play is over, there's not
0 seconds
action going on.
Like, I mean, they should officially. Yeah. The NFL needs to. There's to be a little more common sense and say, hey. But also, it's like one of those we haven't seen it in a long time. The Deshaun Jackson, right, where the guy fumbles the bar at the 1 yard line because he's like celebrating before. that we haven't seen that in a couple of years. It feels like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't remember the last
Last
time.
one I remember seeing was actually Steelers Bears a couple years ago, where the Bears on a blocked
Yeah,
field goal
it was.
ran one back, and it got he wasn't really celebrating, but he was taking it a lot slower near the goal line. I forget who it was,
Yeah,
but the Steeler special teams guy knocked it out of his hand right at the goal line.
yeah. I do remember that play. I can't think of which Bear it was.
I can't remember either.
But that is, like the NFL,
but they're rare. It doesn't happen.
Every single head coach in their meetings this week has to show that play to everyone on the team and be like, I know I'm asking a lot of you. It's a stupid rule. But if we're in this scenario, they lost the game because they were emotional and celebrating like that.
Yeah.
And it's stupid that our rules are that way, but you've got to try to put that kernel somewhere deep in your brain to remind yourself, don't make that mistake. But they should change the rule.
They should. And Tony Dungy pointed out, actually, I guess technically, DJ Moore took the helmet off when he was off the field. Now, like a step off the field. But apparently the NFL officiating confirmed to Tony Dungy that actually that shouldn't have been a penalty because he was a step outside of the field. But regardless,
either way, again, that makes
you don't put yourself in that position.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly right.
I did have actually from that game, I did have one of my costumes there. PJ Walker dressed up as Bazooka Joe, the bubblegum company, because of his 62-yard bazooka throw, 62 air yards in that one from PJ Walker. Like I said before, Carolina actually found a competent quarterback. He's playing pretty well for him. You got to give him credit. He was a 4th-string quarterback, and he's playing some good ball right now.
I had the costume that Eddie Pinheiro was dressed up as Cody Parkey, but that was a little different.
Yeah. He didn't actually hit an upright at all. So there's that. All right. Well, I'll defer to you. Do you have a costume one that you want to talk about? One of the games?
I do have a costume. Jets versus the Patriots. I'm going to go to Zach Wilson. I had a couple options. There was the option that Zach Wilson could have dressed up as Carson Wentz because he's just becoming kind of Carson Wentz. He's just so reckless. And it is
funny because I have 4 bullet points left and Zach Wilson is one of them. So that's funny that we both picked him.
Well, he's a talking point right now. He's a huge talking point. No, but I had Zach Wilson as Daredevil. He wants to be a superhero, but he's blind. And he's just, he's making it's like, why some of these throws. And, to me, I one of the reasons I wanted to channel on Zach Wilson was, again, I know it's silly and it's a hot take Monday, but as of this morning, right now, the second year quarterback without a doubt that's trending in the best direction is Justin Fields. Justin Fields is had now 2 weeks in a row where he's looking like Jalen Hurts. Like we've been screaming at all year. The Bears need to play like this is what they need to run. Like he is Jalen Hurts. Like this is what Justin Fields can do. And meanwhile, Trevor Lawrence looked bad in England. Zach Wilson looked like he was Sam Darnold seeing ghosts that was my other costume. He could have been just dressed up as Sam Darnold in the Jets, seeing ghosts against New England. And then obviously Mac Jones got benched, shaky, not healthy. He wasn't great in this game. And Trey Lance, it's hard. His arrow's so neutral because the injury. But right now, you got to credit Justin Fields and the Bears. They're kind of figuring it out. And Zach Wilson is, he looks like Daredevil out there.
I think that was a pretty good pick. Yeah. He, in the 22-17 loss to the New England Patriots should have been a win for New York right there. But his 3 interceptions, it was a little bit harsh, but I chose clown. He dressed up as a clown for this one. It was a joke of a performance. 3 interceptions was the reason for that loss. Can't excuse it for sure. I'm going to go to the Steelers-Eagles game, and I'm going to say that A.J. Brown dressed up as the guy from the show River Monsters. Because he was hauling in big catch after big catch.
Cameron Wade, or what's his name? I
honestly forget the guy's name. Hold on.
It's a great show, River Monsters. He's hauling in big catch after big catch.
3 touchdowns, 2 of them on the exact same play. And it was just a dominant performance really by Jalen Hurts, the Eagles, and AJ Brown. But
Yeah.
AJ Brown stole the show. The guy's name was biologist Jeremy Wade. So
Jeremy Wade, I knew it.
Extreme angler and biologist. There
Yeah.
you go. That's what AJ Brown went as this past week, because it was a clinic on the complete dethroning, and not dethroning, just absolutely demolish performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 35-13.
I have a cheap, easy one that you don't even need to talk about it. It's just
Okay.
a kind of a one-liner. Russell Wilson, he went to England as Jesus. He was just
Yes.
Jesus, center of the field doing his thing. I will say,
that would have been a perfect open for us to talk about his shenanigans on the bus ride or the plane ride.
I'll say this. I think Russell Wilson is now, it's becoming almost like he's leaning into it. It's crazy. The stories are crazy. But I don't like people criticizing it's one thing to criticize Russell Wilson for the plane antics, him telling everyone about the plane antics, like he's the reason it gets out. It's one thing to criticize Russell Wilson for the pregame on the midseason on the logo, just like doing his thing. I won't criticize Russell, and I don't think it's fair to criticize Russell for after the game, after every NFL game, after every college football game, pretty much after every high school game, there's a lot of them. There's a group of guys, some of them will get together who are religious guys, and they will sit down and pray. Like they'll take a knee from different teams. They did that, and that was televised. Russell Wilson doing that kind of leading or saying something at one point in time, and people ripping for that. That's one of those listen, that actually does happen after every game, and a lot of people partake in that. I got no qualms with anyone doing that. I wouldn't rip on him for that. And save your ammo, because there's plenty of other things to rip Russell Wilson on that he does that no one does. And I do think Tyler Lockett, he was my other one, because Tyler Lockett said after the Seahawks win, I have him dressed up as Randy Marsh carrying his giant nutsack in the wheelbarrow, because I can't remember the exact quote. He basically said, "It's amazing what this team can accomplish when no one cares who gets the credit."
Yeah, that's exactly what he said.
And that was to tie into this Russell. The Russell was the throw off. That was really the costume I had with Tyler Lockett, was that, huge balls on him to say that. And I think he's saying, what, there's a lot of people left over in that Seattle locker room who I think are playing free, playing loose. Same thing as I mentioned at the beginning of the show with Brady, creating an aura in the locker room for the Bucs that probably is very toxic and this is awkward, walking on eggshells. It feels like the Seahawks are just they're maybe smoking, swearing. They don't have to worry about Mr. Unlimited.
They look and sound relieved.
Yes, they do. Absolutely.
Yep. It's crazy. I didn't anticipate. I always knew he was corny, but the more the stories come out of just the over posturing, the constantly wanting to remind people and show people, no, I'm such a hard worker. I was on the plane ride to London doing high knees while everyone else was sleeping. You're the one telling people this.
He's the one telling people. It's like, what are you doing?
It's crazy. It's man, especially when he knows there's cameras around and stuff, you can rely on other people telling that story for you. But obviously when he was injured doing the 2-minute drill pregame, last year, pretending to have a huddle with invisible people, it's just dude, come on. But it's a rest, man.
That's where it really started. It really started there. And because remember, when we started this show, episode 1, I was the Russell Wilson MVP, get on the Russell Wilson train. And that year was not great for the Seahawks. Last year then was a disaster when he was injured and missed a lot of time, and he was not the same. And now, this year starting off, it's just been, you can't look at him the same way that we looked at Russell Wilson when we started episode 1.
Other people are not doing this or talking about it.
Yeah.
But Russell is. And so it's this isn't just people piling on you, man. This is pretty unique to you right now. And it's weird.
Well,
it's weird.
It is. Absolutely. And those were my costumes. I had one more. Let me check my notes, but if you have another, go for it.
I said Tony Pollard went as a pirate because he shot out of a cannon against the Bears. And, particularly on that 54-yarder for his final touchdown of the afternoon, 131 yards, 3 touchdowns. against the Bears kind of went off. And that's why I alluded to the fact earlier that Jerry Jones is still so adamant about Zeke and how much he brings to the offense after a win. It's like he can't even give Tony his due. He has to go run,
I know.
Defense for Zeke and justifying how much money he paid him years ago. It's so obvious to everyone that Zeke, by the way, Zeke is still like not someone I think should be out of the league. Like he's still a capable running back.
Absolutely.
Tony Pollard's clearly got more juice and more,
but they
provides
Zeke,
more spark.
He doesn't want to look wrong. He doesn't want to look like he's wrong.
That's it. That's all it is. I had one other. I'll give it to you though for yours.
No, go for it.
Okay. My final one was Aaron Rodgers went as Jack Sparrow, and I honestly think that he just dresses up as Jack Sparrow constantly because he's apathetic and aloof, while also having an excuse or
never his
putting
fault.
off blame onto others and things like that. He's always the victim in certain scenarios. And once again, a 10-point loss to the Bills. He called it last week, essentially calling a shot. We're going into Buffalo and we're not going to have a chance. He was trying to give some weird motivation to the team. Nah, it didn't work, man. And so still to this day, we're dealing with a dysfunctional group in Green Bay.
Okay, I found what I had two more. They're both just one-offs. Tom Brady when he's Skeletor. He just looks like he looks scary right now. And then for tonight, Joe Burrow, he's just going as Macaulay Culkin. I mean, the kid he should just always dress as Macaulay Culkin.
I think personally, Macaulay Culkin dresses as Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is Macaulay Culkin.
They are. I mean, they're the same.
I've never seen them both in the same room, honestly. So there is that. He looks ridiculously like Macaulay Culkin for sure.
Yeah,
hopefully, are they at home? Oh no, he's not home alone. He's he's on the road alone. He's lost in Cleveland.
Home Alone 2, Lost in Cleveland.
Lost in Cleveland. Good stuff. Before we toss it, you got any thoughts on the Monday night game, Bengals at Browns?
No, not really. I think it'll be interesting to see how the Bengals respond now without Chase. So, what is that going to look like? It's a game the Bengals should win, but they're on the road. It is divisional, so it can be tight. I think it's going to be closer and maybe more low scoring than you think. Chubb is going to get a big load of the carries. I also think that the storyline to look out for Hunt, wanting the trade, and the Browns are going to listen for it up until tomorrow's trade deadline. So we'll see. Maybe Hunt gets a ton of work and they try to increase the value, or maybe they keep Hunt out completely and try to save him. So he's still tradable. That's it. The only thing I'll just say this about my Bears here in the last minute. And if you want a minute on your Steelers, that loss to Dallas, it stings, but that is exactly the type of loss that I was completely okay with this year. The Bears need wide receivers, need offensive line help, and need defensive line help. Till the Bears get weapons, get offensive line structure better, and have an elite pass rush to go with their great young secondary, they're going to lose a lot of games like that because they cannot score. But Justin Fields did not lose them that game. He was a part of why they were in that game and capable of even having a chance to be competitive in that game. Then the Bears have an identity. 200 plus rush yards for 3 straight games. They haven't done that since the 1960s. That is awesome. I love that because that is an identity you can build off of. And if you can get 2 elite pass rushers, if you can get yourself 2 elite new offensive linemen to shuffle into this deck and find yourself another 2 really good quality pass catchers, all of a sudden this Bears team can win those games and because of Justin Fields. So that was I know the Monday night win was so exciting, and now we have a Sunday loss to Dallas, but I'm riding really, really high with my Bears right now.
I would feel good about the Bears. And, the biggest thing that I was thinking of when you mentioned the run game and their success in recent weeks is the biggest talking point was how bad the Bears offensive line was. And it's got holes and they need to
but they can run
there. But they can run block really well. And to me, that's coaching. That's 100% an emphasis and coaching. So can you imagine how much more dominant they will be come next year when they get a top tier guard, another center or something
legit
like that
center.
in there.
A center and a guard right now.
Yeah.
Jenkins has been proving himself, and the young tackles, Borum and Jones, they played well. Like, I mean, I'm willing to give them room to grow. You need to go get the best center in the league that's available, and you need to get an elite guard to go with Whitehair. And all of a sudden, that offensive line could be, yeah, you're right. It could get really scary really quick.
As for my Steelers, real quick, obviously not too much to be excited about from a performance standpoint. I do think that, come tomorrow, Tuesday, we're going to hear a change of play calling duties. It's the Matt Canada experience has been really bad.
Really bad.
20 of 26 games that he has been the offensive coordinator for, they have failed to score 20 points.
Yeah,
20
that's not
of
good.
26 games.
That's not good.
I know there are issues. There are issues with the offensive line. We're seeing that with the Bears. They're able to somehow run it. You have a first-round draft pick running back. You can't run worth a lick. And so that's a huge problem. Kenny Pickett, the jury's going to probably be out till the end of the year. But there are concerning signs. I mean, he's turning the ball over a lot, and the communication seems to be off. I do like the moxie he showed afterwards. He really, at the podium, called out the team, and even in a way called out the coaching staff. I mean, he was pissed, and I kind of like to see that from a rookie. Shows that he cares and can identify what the issues are, and too many penalties on that team. So, look, I mean,
they're in a weird spot because it feels like everyone's calling them about Chase Claypool and maybe some other pieces, but I don't know if you want to give that up, if you want to just, they're in a weird spot.
I think you'd have to get a third rounder for him, and I just don't know if anyone's willing to pay that price for a guy who was drafted in the second round who, let's be frank, hasn't really produced very much. He's had some great moments. It's kind of like Martavis Bryant, right? That guy was an absolute superstar when it was on, but he had so many issues of consistency and things like that. You can never truly tell with some wide receivers or players in general in the league. That's just to show how it goes, and it's really a coin flip a lot of the time. But look, at this point, I'm kind of just thinking, hey, if we just eke out, one or two more wins the rest of the way, I'm fine with that. A top 5 pick next year, be the first time in my lifetime as a fan, certainly, that they've been able to pick that high, and I'd be happy with that to be able to get a top tier talent. So we just got to ride it out at this point. They got a bye week, a long time to stew on that one, but some changes coming, I think, for sure. But yeah, 100 episodes in the books. Awesome stuff. Really excited. Let's hope to keep it going for another 100 and see if we'll touch on some of those topics there in episode 200. Next week, I think we're on Tuesday. Is that right? Or is that the week after that we're on?
We'll talk.
November 7th.
I'm available in the afternoon on the 7th. Peel behind the curtain.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I think we'll be good to go then next week. But yeah, until then, everyone, for the 100th time, this is the Football Lounge with Mark and Dan signing off.